Welcome to CO452. In case you missed the first session, this is a recorded video which intends to help you catch up with what we discussed in the workshop session. So in this quick video, I'm going to help you get set up with a GitHub account, and then we're going to clone the master repository. You're going to take a copy of it and then clone that on your local device, and then we're going to open up Visual Studio Code and make a few changes to that the first week file, and then sync those changes back to your GitHub repository. So the first place to start, if you haven't already got a GitHub account, the first place to go is github.com, and then you're going to want to type in a personal email address. We recommend using the personal email rather than your student ID at bucks.ac.uk. Personal email because we want your GitHub account to outlast your time here at the university. We're hoping this GitHub account is going to be the start of your lifelong portfolio that spans your career, so it's good to have something that you can keep after you graduate from the university. So go ahead and sign up with your personal email. I won't go through all that right now, but you just want to use your personal email here and then go through the steps. Obviously, you're going to need an account password. Choose something that you remember. And you also ask for an ID. Now, this is something that you can choose. Helps if you use your personal name, something that you can be identified by, but obviously your first name and surname may have already been taken, so do add some extra characters or letters or numbers as well for that. Okay, so once you've got set up and gone through the validation process, it may send you a 6-digit code, or it may ask you to click a link via an email sent to you. Once you've got your account set up and verified, you're then going to want to navigate to our Blackboard page, CO452, and another reminder, in case you haven't already set up the email forwarding, you're going to want to do that so you get the announcements sent by myself and my colleagues. So make sure you set up the email forwarding so that you receive these announcements via email, okay, to your personal email. In that first announcement we sent out is a link to the template repository, okay? So if you click on that link, you should be taken to that, and I can also get to it via here. You'll get to this master repository, okay? Now you're going to want to create a copy of this, so click on use this template, and then you'll go to this page. Now you'll notice if you're signed in, you should have your personal ID here. Okay, this is my personal account, and then you're going to want to give it a name. You're taking a copy of our master repository for this module, CO452, so you might want to give it something related to the module name, or you might want to call it Java Basics, or something that reflects your name as well. So I could call it CO452 Java Nick. Use underscores or hyphens as you wish. You can't have spaces, so one or the other. If there's a particular naming convention to follow, it's probably the hyphens, so use that for your repository name. You can leave it as public. I don't think we've got other branches, so you don't have to tick that. And then you want to click on create repository from template. Okay, so I already have done this, but you have to go through that process. You need to click that green button down there. And then you should, if I go back to my repositories, this is my personal account. So this is one I created a little while ago, called Java Test. Once you've got your copy of our master template, you then want to click on that code button, that green code button now. Notice it changed from use this template to code. So here's the master, which is under our organization name, BNU CO452 Java Apps. Use this template, and then your personal one is code. Okay, so you want to clone that. Cloning really is just duplicating. You create a clone of something. So we are creating a local copy. We're duplicating what's on the server, what's on GitHub's account server, and we're going to create a copy of it on our local device, whether you're on a laptop or you're on the university computers under your account. So you're going to want to, well, you've got options because you can open it in GitHub Desktop. If you've got that, you can also open it directly in Visual Studio. Okay, so you've got a myriad of options. You can also create a copy of that URL and get it via the Git GUI as well. We recommend using GitHub Desktop simply because it's a bit more intuitive. So let me just find that here. So if it might come up with a slightly different menu, but in GitHub Desktop, but what usually helps is if you sign in via GitHub Desktop. So if you sign in and then with your GitHub account, you should then see your repository appear. But in case you don't, you go to the clone option and like I say, if you're signed in, you will see the list of repositories that you can download, and if you created the copy, you'll see it there. But if not, go to the URL and then copy in that URL. Now for me, I've already got a copy of this, so it's going to tell me that I can't create another copy of it because I've already got it, but it won't tell that to you unless you've already cloned it as well. So clone it there. You can do it in GitHub Desktop, or if you've got the integration in Visual Studio Code, you can also do it via source control. Okay, so you can also get to it via there. Probably say something like clone from GitHub. There we go, clone from GitHub. And if you've authorized it, it will then come up with a list of repositories. And there we go. There is my particular Java test one there for the labs that I've been doing throughout the week. Okay, so click on that and then it will download it. So what it does is it downloads what's on your GitHub account in the server end. Creates a copy of it locally. So GitHub is used for version control. Okay, that's the idea. It's managing the different edits and the different changes that you make. Okay, so it's industry standard pretty much. So we recommend creating a profile so that you can then get used to what you will then go on to do if you go on to be software developers or working in an organization. It's very good to have a portfolio of work ready to present to your employers. Okay, so we recommend doing that, and also it's going to be useful for your assignment as well, your project at the end of the module, because the idea is for you to work in teams and collaborate on the same project, the same repository. So if you have your own account, you can then track the changes that individual team members make, and then that allows you to manage a project that's spread across different computers and different devices. Okay, so really good tool, industry standard, highly recommended. Okay, so let me see now, how can I get back to this? Let's get out of that. Okay, so if you've cloned it successfully, either in GitHub Desktop or in your Visual Studio Code, you might have an option come up in GitHub Desktop to open in Visual Studio Code. You can do that, or you might even see the folder option where you can get to it there. You can open up there. Also in Visual Studio Code, you've got the option of opening a folder. So follow that through and then you'll get to wherever it probably creates a GitHub folder in your documents. So it's probably in there, and then open that folder. You want to open the parent folder. You don't necessarily need to open up particular folders within that directory. Java tests, in your case, whatever you called your repository, should be fine. Okay, so once you've opened that, Visual Studio Code will then duplicate that folder structure here. Essentially, you've got a file navigator. You can open up the different folders. Our first 5 weeks are located in the SRC, short for source folder. And if you go down to week 1 and then open up week1.java, you should see something like this. Okay, and as long as you've got up and running with the Java extensions, Visual Studio Code is pretty good because it will tell you what extensions are missing, and to click on the install, it comes up usually in the bottom right. So just look out for that. If you see things like you need to fix something or install something, just click on that. It might require a reload. You might have to close Visual Studio Code down and then open it up again, but it's usually pretty good at resolving itself. It usually sorts itself out and will enable you to then start running the code. So when you're up and running, click on that triangle there, top right, or you can also get to it via the run and debug there. And the very first thing you should see is a little banner from us. This is our little welcome. So we've got a little heading there. Remember, print line outputs text and data to the screen. So you have to get to it via system.out. So remember, capital S for system. Okay, so print line throws things to the screen, and we're also making use of a helper class which has methods to capture data from the keyboard. So here where you see get string, that's going to wait for you to type something in on the keyboard. So if I enter in my name, remember to click on this terminal down here and press enter, it's going to come up with this. And it's going to store it in the string variable called name, and then it's going to print it out to screen. I've put it within the print line method. Remember, whenever we state the variable name, we refer to the value stored there. So rather than me statically saying that name is Nick, would work for a primitive program, but rather than doing that, where every time I run the program I'm always going to get the name having the value of Nick, ideally I want to capture the user's name, so I want them to type it in, whoever's using this program, and therefore that's a dynamic way of capturing that data, storing it in a variable, and then we refer to it when we print it to screen. Okay, so here what's going on, we've got the plus sign, and plus sign, we overload it. It's a fancy name really for saying that we change the behavior of the plus sign. Rather than adding two numbers together, we're going to add two pieces of data. We're joining them together. Okay, so we're not numerically adding them, we're just joining them into the same phrase, the same string. Okay, it's a B output down below. So that allows you to, becomes a placeholder really for what you type in on the keyboard. All right, so hopefully that should model the process of inputs and then storage in variables. You both create the variable and then you assign the value to it, and then we also output that data at the end. Okay, so one final thing to model is changes. So let's say we were to ask for, let's do a different example, the ID of a student. We could use what's been given here. If I copy that, input reader, rather than getting a string, I want to get an appropriate data type. So I'm going to say get int there. And rather than enter the name, let's say enter your ID. So that's your 8-digit student ID that's on your card there. And then we'll also throw that to the screen as well. So I'm going to copy that output, the print line statement, and let's just say that your ID is, and then what do we write here? We would refer to the variable name, remember, to get the value. So let's run this again. So we start again with the name, and then enter your ID. Let's just make up a number, and there we go. We have captured that ID, stored it in a variable, and then we have referred to that variable to print it out to screen. Okay, so again, another process of inputs, storage, and then output. Okay, so one final thing is, notice here you might see a little notification under source control, this little pathway icon here. If you click on that, it's noticed that we've made some changes to this file, week 1, that's saying there. We've modified it. So, and also if you had GitHub desktop, that would also say the same thing down here. So under here, we have a little view here which tells us that this was some old code I've removed, but I have green, the green highlighting here is for code I've added. So what GitHub allows us to do is actually manage changes as we make them. So ideally, what we have to provide a summary statement for what we've done. So ideally we want to write a statement that's going to be reflective of what we've done. So here I might write something like added code to input the ID. Okay, so what I have to do, I have to commit that change. That's first step. And it's possible that I could have several commits that I want to line up in one go. So I could actually go back to my code and start making some more changes and then commit that as well. So I might have this whole list of changes that I need to commit. But the second stage of the process is to push. Like I say, here I've only got one change to commit and to push, but I could have several commits that I want to push in one go. So it's a two-step process. We first commit the change and then we push the changes back to the server, because remember, we're working at the client end, our local end on our device, but we want to push it back, want to copy it back to the servers, the GitHub servers, so that when we go to our URL, go back to our GitHub account, if I press that big blue button there called push, whenever I go back to my personal repository and just refresh that, notice here we have a headline statement, which was the change that I made. So here I've added the code to input the IT. That was 1 minute ago. You can also see the commit history there. If you click on that, I've made 10 commits to this test repository. And then if we go down to SLC, you also notice that headline there. And when we go into the folder, you'll notice the change that we've made. Okay, and there it is. All right, so that in a nutshell is what we aimed to get to with the first week sessions. So please try and get this set up as soon as you can, and then we'll take it further in your next session.